In this video, I'm going to talk to you about a strategy or tool that you can use to ensure that you are giving effective feedback messages. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode on It's a Learning Life for Real. I'm Tamika, and here on It's a Learning Life for Real, I use my experiences as a learning and organizational development professional to share insights and tips that you can use as you journey towards your own personal growth and professional development. If you're new to my channel, welcome, and if you're coming back, welcome again. I'm so happy you decided to join me. If you've not yet hit the like button and subscribe so you never miss a video whenever I upload. We are now going to talk about a tool that you can use to ensure that you are giving effective feedback to, again, a friend, a loved one, a coworker, and or your supervisor. And or if you're in a management position, how you're also feeding information down to your direct reports or are communicating with your peers. It doesn't matter. And the tool actually came to me through a leadership development experience I had back in 2000 and I want to say about 2007. So I'm going to tell on myself a little bit. I remember my first management job came when I was around 27. I had been promoted into the position. I had probably around 6 or 7 persons reporting to me directly. And I remember the company that I was working with at the time, they did this staff satisfaction survey. And the staff satisfaction looked at all different aspects of the company's operations, from the finances, the management. It gave staff an opportunity to weigh in or to give feedback to their supervisors in terms of their management and leadership style. And lo and behold, the feedback came back from my team. So this was probably my first year into the job. And the feedback, the survey was done in the very first year of the job. And the feedback came back and I saw where I was doing, or the team was doing well on just about all the different indicators, except the ones that had to do with their satisfaction with their supervisor, aka me. So, you know, when I got the feedback in terms of what I saw the satisfaction level was in terms of their relationship with their supervisor, I was really hurt. And I was really hurt because I felt like they and I got along really well and I wasn't aware of any difficulties. So I didn't understand why my scores were low when it came on to that interpersonal dynamic or their satisfaction with me as a supervisor. I didn't understand why those scores were low because I had not gotten any feedback from any of them on a one-on-one basis to say that they were dissatisfied. But here I was looking at this report and it seemed, based on the numbers, that I wasn't doing well. And I remember sitting in my office that Monday morning and looking at the computer screen and just crying because I was upset, I felt betrayed, and I was also very hurt because I'm like, these people are walking up and down, talking to me every day, acting like we're all right, and they don't like me. That was my first impression. And I remember my supervisor called me and asked me if I had seen the report, and I told her yes. And she was very supportive. She told me not to worry about it, and that they recognize my hard work and they would continue to support me. And one of the opportunities that came as a result of their support is that they sent me on a leadership development program to help me develop and improve my management skills. And I went to this organization that was called the Center for Creative Leadership. And in my process of learning about how to become a better leader and a better manager, this particular tool that I'm going to share with you, the SBII Model, was introduced as an effective way to give feedback, and I have been using it ever since. So I'm going to share with you the SBII approach for giving effective feedback from the Center of Creative Leadership. According to the SBII approach of giving feedback, the S stands for the situation, and here it is, you want to describe the location, the time and place, the when and the where, the situation that you observed and you're giving feedback about. You want to describe when that occurred. And the reason that you are explaining the situation or describing the situation is you want to help the person who you're giving feedback be very clear about what you're talking about. And this helps you to avoid the issue of people not being, of your feedback being vague or your feedback going on too long. You want to help people to understand what exactly you're talking about by describing the situation clearly to them. And when you describe the situation clearly to them, you're talking about when and where whatever it is that you observed happened. So an example of the situation could be yesterday when we were in the meeting, or yesterday when we were on the telephone call, or yesterday while we were walking. You want to help them to locate the time that you're talking about when it is the behavior you're giving them feedback on occurred. So that's what the S in the SBII approach represents. Having clearly explained the situation in which the incident or the behavior you are giving feedback on was observed, you want to describe the behavior, because remember, one of the mistakes we identified is that sometimes people give feedback that judges the individual and not the behavior, and we're not trying to make that mistake. So you're going to focus on the behavior. So the three things you want to pay attention to when you are focusing on the behavior is you want to focus on the tone of voice, the choice of words used, and also the body language of the individual. So that's one way that you can communicate to the individual the actual behaviors that you observe, not what anybody else told you, but the actual behaviors that you observed. So you're being very specific about, as we said in S, the situation, but at this point in B, you're talking about the specific actual behaviors that you observed. So that's the B in the SBII approach. So having spoken about the behaviors that you observe, the next thing you want to do is you want to talk about the impact of that behavior on you. So you're not talking about the impact of the behavior on other people, you're talking about the impact of that behavior on you. So here is where you have an opportunity to talk about what you thought or felt, or your reaction to the individual's behavior. And let me just clarify that if you're in a position of management and you've observed a particular behavior by one of your direct reports or one of your employees, and there's an impact of that behavior on the operations of the team, you can speak about that from your perspective. However, what you shouldn't do is go into the conversation and speak on behalf of other employees. You're never ever in giving feedback speaking on behalf of other people. You're always speaking on behalf of yourself. So that's what you're doing when you're talking about the impact in the SBII model. So the second I in focus is on the intent, because in a lot of instances, the impact you have is different from what your intent was. So this is where in the feedback conversation, you have an opportunity to make it a dialogue. You have an opportunity not to rely on your own assumptions, but to ask the individual what was their intent, or what was the intent behind their actions. What was going on for them? What were they seeking to accomplish? So those are questions that you could ask the individual to clarify what their intent was, or what they were trying to do. By asking about the person's original intent, it allows you to foster dialogue where you're not the only person speaking. The individual to whom you're giving feedback, they have an opportunity to give you feedback as to what it is that was going on with them. And what this also does is that it helps you to be able to highlight the difference between what the intent was and the impact, because it could be that the person was trying to do this, but their impact was that. And it helps you to get to a place of understanding in terms of what the way forward looks like. So that's the cool and good thing about the second I in the SBII approach. It allows you, or provides an opportunity for you to not rely on your own assumptions behind what it is the behavior is meant. It promotes and builds trust, and also creates a space for positive dialogue, which could help to improve and or continue to build positive relationships. So in summary, the SBII approach recommends that you start first and foremost with describing the situation. And when you're describing the situation, you're paying attention to location and time. You're telling the person when and where the incident and or the behavior you observe took place. The B stands for behavior. And here it is that you're focusing on the actual behavior that you observed. And you want to pay attention to things like body language, word choice, tone of voice, and so on and so forth. The I, or the first I in the SBI approach, this one focuses on the impact. Here is where you're talking about the impact that that person's behavior had on you. So this is where you get to share your reactions to what it is that you've observed. And then the second I, the intent, is where you give the individual an opportunity to clarify what was going on, what was their intention behind their actions. So you don't have to rely on your own assumptions. So that's what the SBII approach advocates in terms of how it is that you want to think through your feedback, the feedback that you have to give, and to make sure that you're doing it in the most effective way. So let's look at an example of using the SBII model. Yesterday in the proposal committee meeting, I was given my update as to where we were with the proposal. And at the beginning of my presentation, I had asked for persons to hold their questions until the end of the presentation so as to ensure that I was able to get through all the things that I needed to get through for my presentation. And though I asked for questions to be held until after my presentation, you kept interrupting me while I was speaking. And the first time you did it, I answered your question and attempted to get back on track, but you kept jumping into the conversation and interrupting me, and it made it really, really difficult for me to focus on doing my presentation. And at one point, the conversation got derailed because of your interjections, and I wasn't able to complete my presentation. So when you did that, it made me feel unsupported, it made me feel frustrated, and it made me feel as if you were really trying to undermine my performance in front of the rest of the team, because I had specifically asked for everybody to hold the questions, but you totally disregarded what I asked. And at one point, the presentation got hijacked because everybody went off course when you asked a question about something that wasn't even related to what I was talking about. So I just kind of want to understand what was going on for you, because I'm not so sure what you were trying to achieve by that. So I just kind of want to understand what were you trying to accomplish by doing that. So in that example, you would have seen where I described the situation for the individual by telling them where and when the behavior was observed. Then in the behavior, you heard me talk about the fact that they constantly interrupted me while I was making the presentation, even though I had specifically asked for questions to be held until the end of my presentation. And I spoke about my frustrations and not feeling supported. And then I asked the question, what was going on for you? What were you trying to achieve? So that is an example of how you could use the SBII model if it is that you're going to give feedback. So if you have feedback to give to a member on your team or a loved one or a friend, I'm going to ask that you think about using the approach to see if it is that it helps you in composing more effective feedback messages. Thank you for watching this video. Remember to hit like and subscribe, and to leave me a comment so I know the topics that you're interested in and what you would like to see me do another video on. Until next time, remember, it's a learning life.